When you're ready to start cutting your fabric pieces, please refer to the bottom of page 3. I have included a color-coded diagram to help you figure out exactly what fabrics to use for what pattern piece. So as you see, the wow effect of our color block dress is this beautiful color blocking effect you get at the front. So you will need to use different fabrics for both front pieces and both bottom pieces, and you'll need different fabrics for the back pieces too. You'll also notice that you will need to cut some pieces out of lining fabric. You have your 2 lining pieces and all of your pockets. These are the pieces that are all on the inside of the garment so they don't get seen. If you don't have lining fabric at home, you can absolutely use one of your printed pieces, but why waste a pretty fabric while you can use less expensive lining fabric for the inside? So once you have everything cut out, as I have it here, it's time to start marking all of your positioning dots and markings that we have on the pattern, like where the pockets go, where the buttonholes go, all of those pieces. The top front pieces don't get any marking, so you can just put those aside while you mark all of your other pieces. For your top back piece, you will need to mark your buttonholes. So this is the way I like to do my marking. I line up all of the edges of your paper pattern with one of the sides of your fabric, and then you find the buttonhole marking that matches the size you are sewing. Now we are sewing the size 2T, so I'm going to mark my 2T buttonhole. I like to use a marking tool and actually pierce the paper pattern just to mark 2 little holes in here, and then through the pattern you can make a tiny little marking onto the fabric. Go ahead and lift it just to make sure your dots are there, and I can see that they are here. So then you can remove the pattern and just connect the dots. You're going to go from dot to dot to make your buttonhole marking, and do the same thing on the other side. Your pattern will be upside down, but you'll already have your holes in your paper pattern, so you can just mark it and connect the dots. So you'll have that piece ready to go. For the pockets, I like to do a different method. It's actually a little bit easier, but because when you get sewing, sometimes the marking tool markings get lost. What I like to do is line up your paper pattern with the fabric. Make sure all your edges are nicely lined up. And then I just like to make a little notch. Small, I mean, it doesn't have to be more than 1/4 inch. You will never see it later on because it's going to be hidden within your seam allowance. You cut through the fabric right where your marking is. And now you have a nice little notch within the seam allowance, so it will never get lost. It'll always be there, and you'll know exactly where your pocket goes. And then you'll do the same thing on the other side. Mark it right there, and then you'll have both of those pieces ready to go. Now the last piece that you need to mark is the back bottom piece. Now this one gets gathering dots at the top and the pocket markings on the side. So you will do exactly the same thing that you did before. You'll mark the dots by pretty much piercing the paper pattern with your marking tool and just marking through it. And then you'll mark your pocket positioning notches with your little embroidery snips. Once you have all of your pieces cut and marked, you're ready to start sewing. So let's get started.